Start early. Call the meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Alahousas? Mr. Boris? Mr. Elliott?
Here.
Mr. Hasek?
Here.
Mr. Roboski?
Here.
Chairman King?
This is a quasi-judicial meeting, and anybody who would like to speak tonight, please stand and be sworn in. You want to swear him in? Anybody that'd like to speak tonight, you please have to stand up.
Anybody that's going to be presenting any testimony or evidence before the board, please stand and raise your right hand. It absolutely has to be testimony and evidence. You can only speak for or against an application in the form of testimony and evidence. So if you're going to speak at all, raise your hand. Do you swear to tell the truth on the matters before the Board of Adjustment here this evening? All right, thank you. Everybody, please be seated. When you come to the podium to speak, please state your name, please state your address, and indicate that you've taken the oath.
Okay, we have quite a bit of internal business to do tonight, so I'm going to ask the board to make a motion to change the order of the minutes until after the public is completed.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and second to move the the minutes until after the public portion of the meeting is completed. Want to vote?
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Hasek?
Yes.
And Mr. Roboski?
Yes.
Okay, our first application is 15, number 17, the variance for rear yard setback. See if I can find my portion of it. I'm a little out of order tonight because I wasn't expecting to be.
Yeah, Chairman, might make a suggestion that we discuss the issue of the two conflicts before we move into this one, so that those folks know that they won't be heard.
Apparently there are two conflicts here tonight with the board. Mr. Elliott will have a conflict on two of the applications. You want to talk about that?
Thank you, sir. I'm the attorney for the Fackless family. I didn't know it was on the agenda until a couple of days ago when I got the packet. I'm not the attorney for the Fackless family on this particular application for these two variances. However, I feel that I should recuse myself and fill out the appropriate forms from the clerk's office and not vote on items 5 and 6. And I would suggest then there's an absence of a quorum to hear those two items, so it should be deferred till the next regular meeting.
And for the record, these are applications number 15-11, the variance to side street setback and request for sidewalk waiver, where the applicant is requesting a variance for a side street setback of 7.5 feet in lieu of the required 15 feet, and a sidewalk waiver for the property located at the corner of Lakeview Drive and Butler Court, zoned R-70A, single-family residential. The second one is application number 15-12, variance to side street setback and request for sidewalk waiver. Application requesting a variance for a side street side street setback of 7.5 feet in lieu of the required 15 feet, and a sidewalk waiver for property located at the corner of Butler Court and Sunshine Drive, zoned R-7A, single-family residential.
Do we need to make a motion on deferring this, or is it just default?
You have to make the motion to defer it, and what you can do is you table it directly to your next meeting, and then there doesn't need to be a renoticing of it.
Okay.
That'll be part of the public record that the hearing will be at the next regularly scheduled Board of Adjustment meeting when there will be a quorum.
Okay.
Okay, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make the motion to defer items 5 and 6 for the next.
Could we make the date certain so that everybody knows the date of that meeting, please, for the record?
Yes.
The next regularly scheduled meeting is April 22nd.
Okay, we have a motion and,
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Second?
Yes. Yeah, I've made the motion, so.
we have a motion and a second.
So yes.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Hasek?
Yes.
Mr. Roboski?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go back to item number 4 on the agenda, application 15-17 for variance of rear yard setback. Could staff read the application?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, Steve Correcchia, Planning and Zoning Director. This item is a variance for rear yard setback of 20 feet in lieu of the variance for a rear yard setback of 20 feet in lieu of the required 30 feet. The property is located at the northeast corner of Shore Drive and Tallahassee Drive. Parcel is designated as Lot 36 in the H.L. Clark subdivision. That subdivision was approved in 1924. Zoning is R100, single-family residential. And that is where the code requirement comes in for the 30-foot setback in that R100 zone.
Yeah.
Previously, a variance was submitted for this property. It was 14-46. That variance had requested side yard setbacks, a side street setback, and a variance to the total side yards. That variance was heard by the board on November 19th, 2014. The board voted to deny that application. The current application is a variance to the rear yard setback. The review criteria for variances, those are found in section 215.02B of the Land Development Code. The staff report states those criteria and the staff analysis. For my presentation, I'll just provide an overview of those. For the first one, staff did find a requested variance is based on the physical nature of the property. As the lot was platted in 1924, it was platted with area and dimensions that do not currently meet the R100 standards. It is considered a non-conforming lot of record, as again, it was platted prior to current regulations. Other properties within the subdivision were platted with sufficient width, depth, and area to support the development of a single-family home. However, as platted, this property has an odd shape that makes it a hardship to construct a reasonably sized and configured home on the property. Staff finds that the configuration of the lot was not the direct result of actions of the applicant, as again, this subdivision was approved in 1924. Staff finds that literal enforcement of the R100 zoning district setbacks would result in a buildable area for this lot that would reduce the property beyond a reasonable use being construction of a single-family home on this lot with a size of at least 1,200 square feet, which is the established minimum size within the R100 zoning district. Staff finds that the applicant's intent to construct a single-family home on the property would not confer any special privilege to this property, as the zoning is single-family, which is the intended use for this property. As also other properties within this area are also developed with single-family homes. Staff finds that the grant of requested variance should not adversely affect surrounding properties or adversely affect the character of the area. The zoning of the area is single-family. The proposal to construct a single-family dwelling on this property should not alter the character of that single-family neighborhood or create a nuisance. Section 215.025, the Land Development Code, also addresses the standards for building on a non-conforming lot of record. These criteria, staff finds that the lot was platted in 1924, and that this property does consist of that one lot, Lot 36. The lot was not created in violation of previous zoning ordinance in 1924. The staff assumption is that this plat was approved and recorded in accordance with city regulations at the time. And staff also finds that this lot was not used to let other properties in the area meet setbacks, that this lot was a standalone Lot 36. Notices for this variance were sent to all property owners within 200 feet of the subject property. A notice was placed in the Tampa Bay Times, and the property was posted. There have been several public inquiries received by staff on this application, with public opposition to the application voiced. The staff recommendation is for approval, as we do find that it meets the variance requests as set forth in sections 215.02B and 215.02.5 Land Development Code. Mr. Chair, board members, that concludes my part of the presentation. Staff will be available for any questions.
Okay, does anybody on the board have questions to the staff?
Not at this time.
Okay. Would the applicant please come forward and state your case?
Please state your name, your address, and indicate whether you've taken the oath.
Good evening. My name is Rudy Arnouts. My address is 31343 Aniston Drive, Wesley Chapel, Florida, 33543. I have my attorney, Mr. Tom Baleris, with me.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'll have Mr. Onat make the presentation.
I would like to enter these 4 pages as additional exhibits and make them part of the record. The first 2 pages are a title certificate dating back to December of 1992 that conveys the property in question in the chain of title, for which I have a title insurance policy, of course, as the address of 100 Shore Drive. I know there was some confusion last time with respect to which street frontage I can use, so all I'm asking for is for it to be revert to the address that was previously granted. So that would be Exhibit 1, 2 pages of the title certificate. Exhibit 2 would be Section 31.06 of the Tarpon Springs Development Code with respect to accessory structures, and Section 38 with respect to allowable yard encroachments without requiring a variance. So I would like to enter those documents into the record. This is my site plan. As you may recall from last time, there were 3 distinct suggestions being offered. If you recall, my initial variance application had the proposed residence parallel to Tallahassee Drive. And obviously, listening to the feedback from the board and the community at large, the setback, any kind of setback reduction with respect to Tallahassee Drive is basically a non-negotiable. Therefore, this particular application does not request any setback whatsoever, other than a reduction of the required 30-foot rear setback to a 20-foot rear setback, with the only burden of proof being left on the applicant of this satisfying the minimum variance required to relieve the hardship, with which zoning staff concurs this site plan achieves that. Briefly explaining what that is, these are the sections of the building code that are legally allowed encroachment allowances. As you can see, the neighbor to the east has a 4-foot encroachment, legal encroachment allowance on the 25-foot setback from Tallahassee, which is allowed for an unenclosed front porch. Similarly, the neighbor to the north has a similar encroachment allowance, so these two encroachment allowances for the very tip of the front porch and the staircase are allowed within the Tarpon Springs development code. These sections of the building code which are attached here to it. The argument that I would make with respect to this being the minimum variance required is that even though the technical setback reduction is 10 feet, in reality, it works out to be less than 8 feet. Because of this section in the building code, I can actually build 3 feet into the allowed setback. So instead of 30, I can build to 27 if this portion of the building is a bay window. So really, the only net square footage that I'm gaining, but it's critical in serving the needs for my family and getting that 4th bedroom in this floor plan, is this area right here and that area right there, which amounts to about 125 square feet net gain. If you look at in the character of the neighborhood, it is obviously on the very low end of the spectrum between the two contiguous neighbors. The neighbor has 1,200, to the east has 1,248 square feet of a base living space footprint. I have 1,333, and the neighbor to the north has 1,623, so I'm on the low end of that spectrum. I must actually thank you guys, because orienting the footprint as you suggested last time, the suggestions offered last time were basically, well, one, no setback reduction will be allowed from Tallahassee, which what I should have done last time was include how far that actually is from the street. There's a 16 and 2/3, 16, 8 inches foot right of way in addition to the setback. So this house is not setback 15 feet rather from the street. It's really 30 and a half feet from Tallahassee Drive. And what that, in effect, results into is the last variance request. I was looking for a width of 32 feet. I've actually reduced that width by 10 feet in order to be able to accommodate that. And the only way to really achieve that extra square footage is to build towards the rear, as you suggested. That's basically it. Also, I want to just point out that on the great advice of my attorney, I am leaving out, unlike last time, any of the multiple possible scenarios that are already possible without a variance to avoid confusion. So I just want to state for the record that what I'm specifically requesting is a setback reduction. And, for example, this neighbor has a swimming pool, this neighbor has an accessory structure. I'm not waiving any of the property entitlements that I already have under the code as a condition of this application. So I would like to reserve the rest of my time to answer any questions, comments, and concerns.
Does the board have any questions?
Thank you for your very fine presentation. We may not technically be allowed to get into aesthetics, but I would like to know if you have any house plans or renderings available. You've just
for the simple fact that I've been at this process for 10 months. I've already invested a considerable amount of money in the neighborhood. For example, I spent just $8,000 on removing the majority of
just the answer to my question is no, you don't.
I don't.
Okay. Do you have any idea? Can you express verbally what you plan to build on this property if you're given the variance?
I plan to build a 2-story structure that will be modern in its architectural nomenclature, if you will. So it will be very rectangular. I'm partnered up with a local Orlando window company that makes 5 by 10 foot sliding glass panels right here in Orlando. I'll be using those. So it'll be a world-class, in my opinion. It's going to be my personal residence. Modern work of architecture that will be very rectangular in nature, 2 stories above parking.
And I assume this is up on pilings?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It will be elevated, the required minimum plus an additional foot because that gets the extra dimensions.
Anybody else have any questions?
Not at this time.
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to open the floor now to anybody would like to speak in favor of this application. Okay, I don't have anybody. Anybody that's opposed to it, you can come up to the podium and make your opposition.
My name is Ralph Young, and I live at 104 Shore Drive. I would be north of the property that is wanting this variance.
And you have been sworn,
And
correct?
I was sworn in earlier. The reason that I am here to speak is more of anything else that this property, does not currently meet the requirements for a single-family residence in this zoned area. My concern is when we start to move things around and we start to upset that every home there meets the requirements, one does not, I think the nature of the beast starts to work. I see a pushback, but yet I also see why cannot the house be further towards Shore Drive? I yield.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Bruce Huffman. I live to the east. I've got a couple
Sorry,
questions.
can you state your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Indicate that you've been
It's
sworn.
Bruce Huffman, 1716 Tallahassee Drive.
Thank you.
Okay. He's saying the setback from the street is 27 feet, but that's at the furthest point. At the front of the house, it's only, 15 or 12? I can't figure out his dimensions here. That and the other question, what's the wing wall at the back of the stairs sticking out? That's encroaching, in my opinion. And also the rear setback. He's coming closer to me. There's no point. On his drawing here, he shows 50 feet in the front yard. From the front yard to his, I think it's his steps, I'm not certain, but it's at the front of his porch. So why can't he move back forward, keep the 30-foot setback on the rear yard? And again, I'm against the entire setback on Tallahassee. I believe he needs to conform with the rest of the neighborhood. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Sorry, give me a second. My name is Lisa Bobber Baylog. My mother lives at 1710 Tallahassee Drive, and it is east, 2 lots down from the proposed residence. Just a couple things. When you're looking
Could you
at-
speak to the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. Nervous. The original variance setbacks that he proposed last October, he had a site plan in his original that said no variance. And he was able to fit a house, which I have it in here in the packet, on that proposed property with the proper setbacks, with no variances to change. Okay? So when that was shot down, then he's going to turn around and move it and encroach on the rear side now. According to his paperwork, on his he submitted this graph showing the square footage of the houses to the north of him and to the east of him, claiming that one is 1,200, one is 1,600 square foot. By adding this mere but critical, is his wording, 124 square feet, that's going to make or break his building a home. If you take that off to 1333, it's still a 1,200 square foot home. It's still usable. It's still livable. And don't forget, he can go up 40 feet. He's going to be a 2-story on stilts. So double it. Is he only using the square footage on the first floor on stilts? So why does he have to encroach on anybody's property? Stay within your bounds. This was the property, he purchased last year. And that's about it. And I do have 124 signed petitions in a 3-block radius that we collected to oppose changing the variance on any of the setbacks.
We can
And
accept
they
those,
are-
we have to keep them.
I know.
Okay.
These are your copies. And there's also out-of-town letters and letters from neighbors to the city to oppose it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, let's go on to, does this
Should be
board have
the
any questions to staff?
It should be the applicant's opportunity to.
I'm sorry?
The applicant's opportunity for rebuttal.
Oh, sure.
I would like to provide a brief rebuttal to the issues raised. Number one, I read all of the letters of opposition last time. Virtually all of them mentioned a 25-foot setback from Tallahassee. So I would like to reiterate the fact, once again, that that does not apply in this case. You cannot judge the merit of the variance based on a setback that is not legally applicable. By choosing the frontage on Shore Drive, my hardship consists of the fact that I only have 24 feet worth of frontage on a legally non-conforming lot in a zoning district where the standard is 75 feet. So to address the other question, the reason I can't shove the house any more forward is because of this trapezoid shape with that very restrictive front lot, that the closer I move it forward, the more, because of this setback Tallahassee restriction, the more I have to narrow my house. What I presented last time, which is what I wanted originally, is a house that's 32 feet wide. This house is 22 feet wide, in order to accommodate for that. With respect to the earlier application that was mentioned, going back in time a little bit to recap, I originally submitted, I first met with the zoning and planning director at the time, which was a gentleman by the name of Rodney Chapman, and I sat down with my very first scenario, which is what I imagine that he was referencing to. His exact words were, "I don't see a problem with that." At the last variance hearing, I can see through everybody here, I thought that that first application was a bit on the aggressive side. But also having experience in dealing with this, I've been a developer for almost 30 years, you want to leave some room for negotiation. Then subsequently, that was followed up by a technical review committee, at which point I was categorically told you're asking for too much. And I then modified that application to reduce my side setback request going from 15 to 5 feet, from 15 to 10 feet. And that basically got denied because of, the blow that we got from the pushing the building setback to the back. And in conclusion, what I will say is, this setback reduction from 30 to 20 feet really only applies because of the angle the house is on to the very outermost tip. It's a side setback on all the other homes on Tallahassee. There's a 20-foot section of the house to the east that is set back 2.5 feet practically closer to this lot line than just the very tip of this house that's going to be at 20 feet. I'm not going to have the entire house set back 20 feet. So the majority of this house is going to be set back further from this lot line, which is a side setback over here than this is. So I imagine is why the zoning staff concurs. Last time I had 4 out of 5 recommendations for approval, with the one caveat being burden of proof that I am actually asking for the minimum variance legally possible to alleviate my hardship. And zoning staff concurs that this application achieves that. Thank you for hearing me out.
Okay. Staff, have the board have any more questions?
I do. My turn?
Yeah.
There was a house on this lot for many years. It was just torn down, former city engineer's house, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
People in the neighborhood, that was former city engineer's house. It was much bigger, as I recall. Is that correct?
That's correct.
People are nodding, yes. When was it torn down? Can someone shout out roughly?
I'm sorry, if somebody's going
Okay.
to speak, they do have to come up.
Bruce?
Here.
Good. When was it torn?
Okay, Bruce Huffman. I believe it was roughly 25 years ago.
That it was torn down?
Yes, the city condemned it and had it demolished.
There was some flood insurance violations there, is that right?
Flood, elevation, everything, setbacks, everything was wrong.
Without holding you to it, Mr. Huffman, can you give us some idea what the setbacks were on that house?
I want to say 6, 8 feet from the sidewalk in. I mean, you could almost walk down the sidewalk and reach out and touch the house.
So it was much bigger than what, a
Yes.
footprint than what is proposed today?
Yes.
Okay, while you're up there, how does this rear yard variance affect your view of the waterfront, for example, or how does it affect you, the 10-foot rear yard setback?
Well, no matter what setback he uses, my view goes away. The little wing wall sticking out toward Tallahassee, I mean, that totally blocks everything. Like I said before, I don't know why he can't reduce maybe the size of the front porch, the depth, move the house forward a few feet. and
How does
keep-
that affect you, the rear yard setback variance, the 10-foot setback variance?
I don't want neighbors that close to me. You know,
But
just,
the house is, the setback variance is not affecting your house to the east. The setback variance, as I read it, is, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, you're right. Okay.
yeah, I walk right out my front door and look directly into the back of his house.
Would any kind of visual screening help that situation?
No,
Like
he's already said, or had an arborist come out to look at taking all the trees down. So there won't be anything, especially up at the second, or up on stilts, the first floor, you know, there's nothing that's going to screen it.
But I was out there, and you have no trees or fence on your side.
No.
Would that be a possibility if that's a concern to you? Either you or the neighbor putting in a fence or trees?
Yeah, that's all possible.
And just for the record, Mr. Huffman came to see me. I have to disclose, you know,
Right.
a ex parte communication. What he's saying tonight is the same thing as he's saying when he came to see me. And I didn't say anything other than I just listened to what he had to say. It lasted about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's all I have at this time.
All right, thank you.
I have a question for the applicant, and I noticed the same thing that this gentleman just mentioned about the wing wall. Could you explain that wing wall to us?
I'm not sure what you mean by wing wall.
Well, it looks like it's at maybe an entrance or
Oh, yeah,
near the
that's an
steps or
entrance.
something like that.
Correct.
Does that have some purpose other than, or what's the purpose of that, other than aesthetics?
That's it.
Because it appears to me that if that's going to be one of the stumbling blocks where it's going to be blocking the view. It looks like, it sounds to me like most of your opposition has to do with the fact that the view is going to be, people's view is going to be lost. And if that wing wall goes away, possibly that would help a little bit.
I can appreciate that, but that wouldn't actually be the case because of the angle of the house. And in fact, this staircase can actually encroach 4 feet into this 15-foot setback. I don't have it that far, but it could. It could go all the way to 11. If that is the concern, if you've got the view being blocked, then this is going to do that regardless of whether this is here or not, because you're looking at it from over here. And I also would just like to respectfully point out that during the last variance hearing in November, I pointed all this out. I originally had my house parallel to Tallahassee, which left approximately a 15-foot clearance that would have lined up right with the east neighbor's front door, that he still could have enjoyed the view, for which also I've already spent close to $10,000 to bury these utility poles, and I'm getting ready to spend another $10,000 to actually take them completely down, because there's 4 different companies involved. So I've paid 2 out of the 4. So there would have been an unobstructed 15-foot, give or take, wide view, which is the setback between these two, had this house been aligned with Tallahassee, but that's no longer the case. And, this is the alternative. This is a scenario that actually could happen without a variance, so I just want to point that out since I brought it up. Under section 36, I can put an accessory structure in the back up to 20 feet tall. So if the encroachment towards the back is a major issue, that can be 5-foot setback from that property line without any special use permit or variance whatsoever. There's an accessory structure all the way back in the corner for this house, and there's one for the next house over. So I'm not asking for any kind of variance with respect to the Tallahassee setback, because I know that that's such a hot issue. And the only suggestion that was offered by the board in order to alleviate the hardship of this very constricted footprint that I can build is to build it indeed towards the rear. So if I'm aligning it with, the point is, if I put this garage back here next to this scenario, you have more of an encroachment, if you will, especially since this structure can be 20 feet tall, than you would with just the variance I'm asking for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You have any questions? Any more questions? Well, okay, this out of order or out of, we can, go ahead, come on up to the podium. Let's get it aired out.
In the packet
Yeah,
that I
let's
submitted,
State your name again, please.
Lisa Bobber Balog. In the packet that I submitted is taking a picture coming down Tallahassee and the view. So when he says that that little jog of the steps won't obscure anybody's view, he's referring to Bruce's, because he's back here. But if you're walking down the street, you can see, and there's pictures in there that'll show that that little jog coming out of the house will, impose on everybody walking down the street.
Okay, thank you very much.
May I
Okay,
say something?
I think we've,
Just one comment.
all right.
I know everybody's coming up here talking about it's affecting their view. However, I don't understand how it affects, how this would be relevant to what we're doing here today. my client has submitted something that's brief. I believe it's well within what's lawful. So I hope the city will, I hope the committee will see so and vote accordingly.
Okay, I guess if no other questions, we'll call for a motion.
I move for approval of the variance as requested.
Second.
Okay, we have a roll call, please.
Any
Mr.
discussion on the
Elliott?
motion?
Well, okay, we could discuss it if you'd like.
Any reason for discussion?
Well, I'd just like the city staff to reiterate, the city staff does approve of this application, right?
Mr. Chair, board members, we've looked at this. We do think it meets the criteria for the granting of a variance. Yes, sir.
Thank you. And also, since Mr. Elliott wasn't present at the last meeting, it might be important to note that there were many recommendations made, and he has accommodated most of those, to my recollection. Mr. Alahousas asked him to do essentially what he just did. So he's essentially complying with that.
Okay,
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Hasek?
yes.
And Mr. Roboski?
Yes.
Okay. Application 15-17 has been approved. Let's go on to the next application we're going to have will be 15-19, variance to a front yard setback.
Sir, sir. Those boards. Sorry, thank you. Just the one you used during your hearing. Yes. Thanks. There you guys go.
Go. Okay, well, you want to take 15-19?
Mr. Chairman, board members, this is a variance request for a front yard setback of 10 feet in lieu of the required 25 feet. Property is located at 764 Chesapeake Drive. It is part of the Chesapeake Point subdivision, lots 17 and 18, that was approved in 1925. Zoning is R100, single-family residential, and that establishes the criteria, a minimum front setback of 25 feet. Standards for a variance, again, they're found in section 215.02B of the Land Development Code. As outlined in the staff report, I will just provide a brief overview of those criteria. First criteria addresses that the need for the variance must arise out of the physical surroundings, the shape or topographical conditions, or some kind of physical aspect of the property. As provided in this application, the applicant states that the house was placed forward on the lot, leaving little room for any sort of additional structures. As such, any proposed garage would need to encroach into the 25-foot front setback. The configuration of the home did not result from the direct actions of the applicant, as the home was built in 1978. However, it should be noted the applicant did have knowledge of the home's placement on the lot when it was purchased. The literal enforcement of the front yard setback in R100 zoning district would preclude the construction of the proposed garage. Without any sort of variance, no garage could be built in this area. And the applicant has indicated that if the variance was granted, the garage face would still be located 27 feet from the roadway edge. The applicant would like to construct a garage on the property. That is something that others in the area do enjoy. That is something that is customary with a single-family dwelling. Should be noted that most of the garages in the area have been built according to the setback requirements. If granted, staff does not believe that the variance would affect surrounding property values or adversely affect other properties. Again, this is single-family zoning. Garages are a typical use in a single-family zone. As such, we believe that if granted, the variance would not alter the residential character or create a nuisance. Notices were sent to surrounding property owners. A legal notice was published in the Tampa Bay Times, and the property was posted. Staff did receive one public inquiry on this requested variance. However, no formal opposition to the variance has been received by staff. Staff does not recommend approval of this variance, as we feel it does not meet the criteria as established in 215.02B of the Land Development Code. However, if the board does determine differently, then staff would recommend approval subject to the condition contained in the staff report. Mr. Chair, board members, that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody does the board have any questions from staff? Both staff?
No, sir.
No, not at this time.
Okay. Can the applicant come to the, and identify yourself, please?
Good evening. My name is Stavros Savopoulos. I live at 4926 Picture Avenue, Holiday, Florida. I am the general contractor representing the homeowner on this garage addition. And since the initial application, I was able to speak with the homeowner and actually got it to work with making the garage actually 2 feet shorter, which will increase the setback from 10 feet that we're asking for to 11.7 feet. So it's almost two more feet, which will bring it to almost 29 feet from the curb. And I do have a drawing with elevations and so forth, so you can see exactly how it's going to be placed on the property, and also an elevation showing what the garage is going to look like.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go ahead and just show them.
Yeah, be on the record somehow. Can you tell us?
No, we're going to need a mic.
Okay. As you can see, this drawing, I just picked it up today, and it was good timing. That way you can see exactly what we're going to be doing here. But it shows the existing structure where it's at. He is going to do a front covered dormer here and another enclosed accessory, but both these buildings are well within the setback. The only one we're asking for the setback requirement is on this building over here. So that's the actual street, and we got almost 29 feet to the front of the building. And going down the street, it's not even going to be anywhere remotely close to where it's going to actually obstruct any oncoming traffic or going traffic, which is a good thing. So that's the actual floor plan. Again, here we got the dimensions. Sorry about that. And here's the front elevation of what everything's going to look like. So it's just a standard two-car garage. It's going to conform to today's building specifications and design of the existing building.
So we need to go back to this setback. Where are you asking for now? You're asking
Yeah,
for?
that's the property line, so it brings it to almost 12 feet from the existing property line. But the yard and property does actually measure 29, almost 29 feet to the front of the corner of the building.
Next question.
Yes.
What is the dimension of this structure?
It's going to be 22 by 22. Well, 23.4.
Just for the record, we're talking about this new garage he
Right.
wants to build. It's
Right.
22 by 22.
Well, it's 22.8 by 23.4.
Okay, so that's about 2 feet
less than what
less
we
than
originally
what
coming in.
originally requested.
Yeah.
Could you explain to me what the city talked about when they said the removable driveway? What they meant in relation to this plan?
The removable driveway?
There's,
That's their condition. If
one of the conditions the city gave is,
existing driveway shall be removed and/or modified in any new driveway constructed in accordance with Section 129 Driveway and Access Management.
Correct. We were discussing with the homeowner. Now, again, you know, you guys would give us a final answer on this, but he was considering possibly doing a circular driveway, which the code says 14, we were allowed up to 28 feet of driveway, so it'd be 14 feet coming in and then 14 feet going out to the street. Or if that doesn't work, I'm sure the homeowner would be satisfied with removing the existing driveway that's there and bringing it up to today's.
where on this plan is the existing driveway?
The survey, you have a copy of the
Yeah,
survey
it's,
there?
yeah, it's
I have a full-size.
pretty much
scale.
unreadable.
Yeah, I had a lot.
I'm gonna ask you.
You can see here, this is the existing driveway now, the way it comes in. It's been pieced and added through the years. It's a wood walkway. He's gonna eliminate this, and I'm actually gonna create, and this is gonna be on the final drawings, the actual concrete walkway for the owner to be able to get in and out, but the existing driveway comes out to the street right now, and this is a current survey that we had done maybe 2 months ago, month and a half, 2 months ago. This, the exact walkway, everything coming around to the back of the building.
So this
And
area here,
that's the exact driveway.
okay.
And building actually, we moved it over a little bit, so I would have to remove this and build it with no aprons and so forth, whatever we gotta do, curbs, so forth, to match and meet the
And on the
requirements.
application, you had scratched out something about a carport.
Yeah, he was initially wanting to add another covered carport of some type over here, coming out to the same dimension on that thing. And I did mention him that that would be a little excessive, and to try to, you know, keep this room that he wanted to do within the setback in the front dormer, just to change the design of the building, update a little bit. But the garage is the only one that's gonna be encroaching.
Okay, so you've removed the carport entirely?
Correct.
Okay, so that's not even in the
Yes,
application?
that's not even gonna be.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
So that's the driveway, wooden deck, and this is all the walkway and everything that's there right now. Front steps and all that. This is gonna be the front covered entry. And, the new dimensions are actually a little bit smaller than what I had shown here.
Question, is there a carport now at the property?
No,
I didn't think
no
so.
carport at all.
Just a
It's just
driveway.
straight, yeah, it's just straight building and the concrete there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I will get, you know, more complete, finalized, signed and sealed drawings after, you know, today's final
No,
answer.
That's not of our concern. I have a question of staff. Do you understand, did you see what he talked about here tonight? Have you seen that?
Mr. Chair, board members, yes.
And what's the staff feel about that change that he's made?
It does, staff's opinion would be it does reduce the encroachment into the setback, almost 2 feet. It would not change staff's opinion in a sense of we felt the evidence was not for the variance. However, it is less of an encroachment that we did not fully look at. This is something new. It was just seen tonight. If the board feels that the evidence shows something different, then that's the board's discretion.
Okay. Is there anybody that wants to speak in favor of this application?
Do we have a chance to ask questions? Did I?
Oh, I thought we were doing that. Go ahead.
No, he was making his presentation. I'd like to have some questions.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
My turn. So there is no garage at this property, correct, at this time?
No.
There's no
No garage,
carport?
nothing, no garage at all.
It's just a long, wide, single-story house on a fairly wide lot, 4 Chesapeake Drive, correct?
Correct.
What's to prevent you from going up 2 stories and putting the garage below that on a portion of this house?
Money, expenses, and main factor is the expense of going up, engineering and designing, and also possibly maybe I had a flood elevation certificate. I need to look exactly and see, and I don't think he's in below base flood elevation, which would then have us into that substantial improvement of 50% or less towards improvements. Now, going up 2 stories would definitely, I think, would exceed that 50% rule.
But the living area would be above the BFE. The garage would be at grade level, correct?
The what?
The living area would be above the base flood elevation? If you did go up 2 stories for just the garage area. In other words, I'm saying if you could just remove a portion of the house,
Right.
build a garage below, and put a 2nd story above the garage. That's
Yeah.
feasible, correct?
It's gonna be tight. Again, I have to see exactly the values of, the land to building ratio and, designing purposes. Now, again, the square footage to take out that down below, and then removing the roof, foundations, and, it adds up quickly. So it might,
I don't bring my glasses, I'm sorry. Steve, what's the width of this lot? Can you tell me?
.91 feet along the front, and then
thank
it
you.
is 133 deep on the one corner, and then 122 on the other side.
But it's a lot wider than the lots on the rest of Chesapeake.
It's deeper
isn't it?
than
Yeah.
it is the
Wider,
width.
too, so you can remove a portion of the house and put a garage on the side also? Is it possible to remove a portion of the house? What's the square footage of the house right now? Do you know?
Square footage is, I can bring that.
If we have the property appraiser's website information, you can get it from there. Well, while they're looking that up, maybe there's comments from the public, Mr. Chairman.
Is anybody opposed to this? Would you like to speak? You go to the podium. Did you get sworn in earlier? Yes. Okay, go to we're gonna, go ahead.
I don't know how to do this with standard.
Just walk up there and say your name and address. The other one.
That one?
My name is Craig Lunt. I live at 743 Chesapeake.
This
microphone?
That one there, there we go.
That's better. My name's Craig Lunt. I live at 743 Chesapeake, which is actually directly across and down one property from the property in question here. I don't really have so many deep objections because obviously this has changed on the fly. Originally, it was a planned garage and carport, and I think that has changed. I would like to make some comments, though. A 10-foot setback, at least from the front property line in our neighborhood, is very, very unusual, not characteristic at all. It's a typical street with cobblestones and has that old Florida feel, and pushing a structure that I thought I heard was 22 by 22 or something towards the front of the property is going to change that to a great extent. I think the reason the house does, to my recollection, the reason the house does not have a current garage was that garage was converted into living area. So the reason there's no garage or carport is they had a garage and they filled it in and converted it to living area. From my personal knowledge, I know the person adjacent to his property has already spoken out in, directly adjacent on the, I guess that would be on the north side, has already said that this was something that they don't want. It would completely ruin the characteristic of their front yard if you know, they would just have this wall of building there. My concern being down the street, you know, 110 feet or so, is that it's just the characterization of the neighborhood is just going to change. You're going to have this garage sticking out. I'm not exactly sure about the length of the driveway from the planned garage entrance, but it seems to me that the setbacks are pretty wide along our street, that there may not even be room enough to actually park a vehicle there without overlapping the setback all the time, which is something we try to avoid in our neighborhood as well. I don't think I really have very much more to say other than, you know, just from the aesthetic aspects, I'm kind of opposed.
Thank you very much.
Question?
Oh, you want,
You said then, can you get back there, please, Craig? You said your neighbor, the neighbor to the north of the subject property objected?
Yes, he
Told
did.
you that? Do you have anything in writing to corroborate that? I hate to
No,
rely on someone saying my neighbor didn't
Yeah,
like it.
I'm sorry, I
Without
don't
a
have
name or
anything in writing.
something in writing saying I authorize you, so I'd like to disregard that.
My apologies.
Okay, it's
disregard.
not your fault, but we have to rely on evidence, and just someone saying my neighbor doesn't like it is not good enough for me. Thank you.
I understand, thanks.
How long have you lived in that property, sir?
I've lived there for 10 years.
10 years, thank you.
okay, now you can continue on with your questions. You? Oh. What,
My name is Ron Townsend. I was sworn in 864 Seminole Boulevard, Tarpon Springs.
question for you before you start. Did you get sworn in earlier?
Yes, I stood up,
Okay.
yes. I was in the back.
Okay.
I'm familiar with the homeowner that's trying to renovate this home. Talking to Andrew, I asked him if he had talked to the neighbors and what their feelings were, and he said it was positive. This home is a blight on that street, and I'd asked this gentleman if he doesn't agree that has been a blight on that street for quite a while. And I think Mr. Beath is investing his funds to make that more in line with what wonderful neighborhood that it is already. So I think he should be congratulated. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, we're getting all out of order here. I'm sorry about that. So, yeah, Mr. Elliott asked you a question about the square footage?
Yeah, 2,581
Okay.
heated, living area.
Do you have any more, Mr. Elliott?
Is it true that the garage was converted to living area? Do you know?
Well, it looks like with that driveway, existing driveway being there, it does seem that someone did actually enclose it. I went in the home and looked at it. I mean, it's hard to tell because there's really no steps down like usually you have in a garage. Maybe it was level at one point. But having that existing driveway there, it does look like it was a garage there at one point. Now, public records, I mean, they don't really show anything on that. I mean, they have the square footage as what it is, 3,000 total. But,
Okay. Next question. Are there any other houses in that street that have a setback that you're requesting? Front setback?
not that I noticed, no. I mean, some, again, were out a little further than some of the homes, but I didn't take exact measurements. But this, again, it's going to be 28 feet plus from the actual curb, which does help as far as aesthetics and looking on, in the neighborhood, because it's not going to be directly in the front, which 28 feet of driveway, vehicles will still be parked well in off of the actual street, which will help visually
Okay, Mr. Veith bought this house about a month and a half ago, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, anybody? Okay. You have an opportunity to respond to your, the opposition.
I've never met the gentleman before, and if you're, concerned as the vehicles being in the driveway, blocking the view, or just,
Need to be up there?
and that's why we did shorten it up. Again, it was gonna be out 24 feet, and I was able to talk with Mr. Beef, and basically we're gonna be, almost 29 feet from the curb to the front of the building. So it's not really gonna, like I said, visually, after it's completed, it's gonna match design-wise with the rest of the house, and, design-wise, everything's gonna be within the same aspect, same design, same roof designs, pitches, and everything with the house. But that's just gonna be a front covered dormer, because it's just one long gable roof along the front.
Yeah, I'm
It's
very
gonna-
familiar with the
Yeah.
property from
Right.
the visual aspect. Do you want to see that?
Okay, could we move along here?
It was 24 feet in the beginning, and then I was able to tell, 24 feet is actually very deep for a garage. Most homes 21, 22 feet maximum, so
Does-
22 feet coming up.
Does
in
the
front.
board have any more questions for the applicant or for staff?
I have a comment. Well, no, it's not a question. I don't have a question, no. Okay. Let's move on. How about questions to staff? Anybody have questions to staff?
Well, I would just ask, Steve, can you foresee any way that he could reduce the garage any more than he already has reduced it?
Say it again?
I'm asking the staff.
Oh.
Could he possibly reduce the garage any more than he's already done from his original 24 to whatever he has now?
Mr. Chairman, board members, it would be tough. I usually see the garage dimensions are this typical, so you can fit the car in, close the door,
Right.
and have room.
Right. And can you envision a driveway that would adjust for access to that, to the structure that he has proposed now? You can envision how he could readjust that after taking out the other driveway.
Mr. Chairman, board members, that was the purpose of the stipulation. Since that pad would not serve that garage, then that should appropriately be removed and any new driveway
In line.
installed to meet code. So that was
Right.
the purpose of the stipulation, that
Right.
if it was approved, we would want that driveway removed and then any new driveway to meet code, so.
And as Mr. Elliott has suggested, removing part of the house to put a garage in, perhaps where it used to be. Any objections to that?
Mr. Chair, board members, from a planning and zoning standpoint, there would be no objections to interior, exterior remodeling.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a comment to make about just the driveway itself. If that garage is put in this position where he showed another 2 feet back, what happens when somebody parks their car in a driveway? Isn't that going to be into the sidewalk area?
Again, from the actual curb, from the city to the front of the garage, front building, the exterior part of the garage is actually 28.7 to 29 feet.
Well, my question is about the sidewalk.
The what?
The sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
Yeah, not the curb, but from the sidewalk.
And the
You're going to
sidewalk,
have to park on the sidewalk if you park a car in the garage.
I don't even think that
Or is there a sidewalk?
Mr. Chairman, board members, along this portion of Chesapeake, there are no.
There's no sidewalks there?
sidewalk,
No,
yeah.
sir.
Okay. That answers that question. Okay. Well,
tell from the survey, there's no sidewalk.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any more questions, and I guess we're up for a motion.
Chris, you
Go for it.
want- I move that the variance request be denied.
Second.
Any further comments? I have a comment.
Well,
I
I do
think-
too, but go ahead.
I think there's some other possibilities here, and one of them would be a single-car garage parallel to the street possibly. I think there are other possibilities besides making a second story of the house or so, and so that's where I stand on it. I don't particularly like having this garage stick out so far into the neighborhood. I guess if there's no other questions.
I have some comments about the
one more
motion.
comment?
Okay. I agree that I think there's too much of a variance requested. I appreciate your efforts, and I can see the house needs a lot more love than it's had in the last few years. I can see it's a deed from Fannie Mae, so it was a foreclosure, and been sitting there vacant for a long time probably, and appreciate the gentleman from California buying this property and fixing it up. But it's a 91-foot wide lot. There aren't that many lots that wide on Chesapeake. There's a lot of narrow lots that do have garages and have gone up, and it's possible to go up, I think, and still meet the FEMA requirements for a garage below and living area above. So I would, if you want to come back again with another application, we might consider that, but I think it's too much at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
I'm going to call for a vote.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Hasek?
Yes.
Mr. Robowski?
Yes.
Okay, application 1519 has been denied. I think that concludes our applications.
And now the minutes.
Yeah, let's fool with the minutes here. We have a whole stack of minutes here that go back quite a ways, approximately 2 years, and they seem to be awfully difficult to prove the minutes that occurred in July 2013 at this point, but I know the problem was with staff was not, the department wasn't staffed properly, I suppose, and minutes were never really written. I guess I had to go back through tapes and get these things put in place, but we do have to either approve them or disapprove them one way or the other. It's my opinion that if you're not at that meeting, I don't know if you should be able to, in fact, that should be a question to the lawyer. If we weren't at that meeting, can you vote?
You actually can. It happens quite often. And just for a point of clarification, minutes were taken at these meetings. They just weren't transcribed. Because the way that the statute's written for sunshine law is you're required to take minutes, but you're not necessarily required to transcribe them, which kind of seems counterproductive, but that's how it's written. But we do have the minutes here to the extent that they're public records and that your board rules require approval. We would be requesting that you approve the minutes that are before you to the extent you want, a disclaimer, maybe something along the lines of saying motion for approval as these reflect the minutes that were taken during this time period. We would approve them without, comment to the same. So, I mean, you can't, my bigger issue would be is if you were trying to change something in the minutes, having not been there, because that happens quite often. Boards that regularly do minutes, sometimes, board members will go through and think something may have not been adequately recorded or transcribed. And that's typically where you see an issue. and where people would be precluded from voting because they didn't know what happened or weren't there. But to the extent you're just approving them as they exist in the city's records, I think that that's fine.
Well, that makes a little bit more sense.
And Chairman, I would like to,
Yeah, go ahead.
to make one comment on that note. The minutes from Wednesday, November 19th, 2014, they state that the regular session in City Hall auditorium, that's inaccurate. We met upstairs, remember? In the other, I don't know how important that is for the record, but there was something else going on that evening. So we had to move upstairs.
Right.
Just, and for that reason, it was not videotaped, and that record is not on the website either. It was audio recorded. So I don't know if that needs to be amended.
I think that that should be amended.
Okay, so
for the
that,
record.
that needs to be changed in that one. And so perhaps, Chairman, we could approve of the November 2014 and the January 2015 minutes, since we were in attendance. And then the rest of them, we could do some
I
other.
would like to do it that way,
Okay.
really.
So I make a motion that we approve of the minutes 11/19/2014 and January 21st, 2015,
With the aforestated.
with the
amendment.
aforestated amendment that we did not meet in the City Hall auditorium.
If I may, I wasn't present for the December meeting. I was on vacation then. I was just appointed shortly before that meeting, so I think I
Right, that's
couldn't.
true.
Well, I was at both of those meetings, so I guess that the fact that says in the City Hall auditorium, I suppose that's just a boilerplate that they put in,
They have a copy and paste,
And-
probably, but she,
but it probably should be changed. I agree with you.
she's saying that probably.
Because if somebody wanted to see the video, then they wouldn't be able to, so.
Right, right.
Okay, let's change that.
Right, I think that's,
And then, oh,
so do we need a motion to this? I mean,
Yeah.
So the motion that I made, do we get a second?
Yes. Reluctantly.
let's call for a vote.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Hasek?
Yes.
Mr. Robowski?
Yes.
Man, what a mess.
And then the others, how are we,
Well, I would actually make a suggestion, because I know it is of a concern to the board, maybe to have the clerk put a statement in the remainder of the minutes that says that it's being approved by a different board at a significantly later date, and maybe have that at the top of the meeting minutes. So, just so it's clear that they were approved by a different board.
That was exactly my comment. I'd like the official version of the minutes stamped to that effect, that it was approved several years later by people who were not present at that meeting, and for a confirmation of what actually happened, the reader is cautioned to listen to the tapes. And we'll keep those tapes for a while, is that right?
They're public records, they're required, there's a whole record retention schedule from the state. I know the minimum that they go away is 7 years, and I think for recordings of official meetings, I think it's even longer. So,
so if that's your motion, I second it.
Yeah, that's my motion, but I would like to hear the staff, I know it wasn't Steve's fault, and it's not on your watch, but I'd like to get some assurance, some comfort that it's not going to happen. You have the staff now to do it, or not?
Mr. Chairman, board members, we are trying to ramp up the staff, but staff did go through and find all these minutes. That's why they're before you tonight. They were trying to bring everything up to date. From this point forward, we'll be bringing you minutes from the past meeting. So as far as I know, you shouldn't be seeing this again. This was a cleanup item.
Is there any explanation, perhaps you don't know, but how we could have gotten them so jumbled from 2013? They're not in chronological order. Any idea what happened to the missing months in there?
That's a good question. It was
Okay.
There is a possibility that there just weren't any applications, and
Well,
there were no
the-
meetings held during those months.
What I'm saying is, in the previous meeting, we were asked to approve April 24, 2013, May 22nd, 2013, April 23rd, 2014. So it jumped from May to April, and then June 25th, 2014, and then today we're being asked to do 7/24, 2013, 10/23. So those weren't,
Okay.
they
I see
were,
what you're
they were
saying.
definitely meetings that were held,
Okay.
but somehow they weren't chronologically stacked up. So that's the thing that disturbs me the most about it.
It could have to do with the length of time that it took to transcribe the particular records for somebody to sit there with them, so maybe they did the shorter ones first or the longer ones first or something like that. I'm not aware of any, particular reason.
Okay, now, I know the staff is supposed to be working on new standards for boards, is this correct? So I would suggest that they be done in chronological order instead of what's fastest, right? That way there'd be less confusion and less chance of a board changing faces, so that the same board members that were actually on there could actually vote on it.
Okay, I think we have a motion on the floor, and you second?
That's correct.
I believe you seconded it. So let's have a roll call.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Hasek?
Yes, yes.
And Mr. Roboski?
Yes.
I was going to ask if you would like to have that read back.
Could I make a further comment about the composition of the board? I believe, and I shouldn't go from memory, my age especially, the charter says that there shall be a board of adjustment consisting of 5 members and 2 alternates. I think it's even in the charter. And it's embarrassing that we've only got 3 tonight, perhaps for justifiable reasons, but we need to have a full board here if possible. This is a very important function of the city. And then with my particular conflict, we couldn't vote on 2 of the 4 items. So I would ask the city commission to check on this and add some alternates if it's legally possible, and to make extra efforts to ensure that we have 5 people here voting on matters, if possible.
Looking at the provision, section 226, it does provide for 5 members, but only one alternate member appointed.
That's the code, right? But the charter says something. The city charter has a
They
reference
can't
to
be in conflict with each other.
The charter prevails over the city code, I would think, but look at that if you would.
Also, I would like to recommend to staff to be more adamant about phone calling to remind members to attend. I did not receive a phone
No,
call.
I didn't get a call today either. It's the first time since I've been on the board, about 8 or 9 years now, that I didn't get a call. And in fact, I called this afternoon. I called the office wondering if maybe the meeting had been canceled, and I didn't know about it. And I wasn't at the call was never returned, so I came here blind tonight, not knowing whether there really was or wasn't a meeting. So I think it's pretty important that we get a call.
My comment about the people not being here, I'm sure that they're fine people and they're justified for not being here. My point is we need to have alternates present so that if there is a conflict or if people can't be here, that we have enough to have at least 4, hopefully 5 people voting. Thank you.
A telephone call can help that too. I mean, that situation. I mean, you can call and then somebody says, no, I don't think I can make it tonight. You say, well, we really need you tonight. A little encouragement to the folks. I thought this problem was solved. I sat here 4 or 5 times by myself or with one other person with a whole crew of people out here, and we had to cancel a meeting. And in one particular case, I think we canceled one application 3 times running before we finally got to it because we didn't have a quorum. And it was pretty embarrassing, I tell you, and especially the 3rd time when guy drove all the way from Tallahassee twice and wasn't able to get the meeting. So I think it's on somebody's back to try to get this thing straightened out.
Right,
Anyway,
so
is
the
there
phone
any-
call, not just a reminder, but to get a running tally of, if we're actually going to have a quorum, so everybody knows before they drive from Tallahassee.
Yeah,
I guess that would be wise.
Yeah,
So,
well,
just getting a verbal commitment.
Mr. Chairman, I know it's caught you off guard to get started, but we did all right. We got through.
yeah, I was caught off guard tonight, but that's, anyway, I guess we're up for adjournment. Adjourn. We're not going to vote on that. Now,